to myself again.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and Liam Kennedy, who joins us on Tuesday nights from Newcastle World. Good evening, Liam.
Evening, Steve. How's things?
Yeah, good to see you, mate. All good this end, and slightly earlier start tonight, but as always, plenty of people waiting to ask you questions, Liam, so we'll get straight into them. From Lee Taylor, he says, "Evening, everyone. Liam, as a well-respected journalist amongst our fan base, what is your take on the way that Steve Bruce handled Lee Ryder's question after the Man United match? Of course, quite an interesting 3.5 minute video put out on social media. He was quite off with Miles Starford, that had to be said, when he was asking him about the fans singing in the crowd. Not very complimentary towards Steve Bruce throughout the game, it has to be said. Then Lee Ryder hit him again with another question, which essentially revolved around his holiday to Portugal during international break. What did you make of all of that and the aftermath?
So yeah, look. The thing in general is it's been something that's been brewing for quite some time between Steve Bruce and Lee Ryder. There seems to be a real annoyance there. Any question asked by Lee Ryder in the press conferences gets the sort of change in demeanour, the eye roll, the sort of huffing and puffing, the expectation that there's going to be a question coming his way that he doesn't like. And I think that outburst has probably been something that's been building for quite some time. I've got to be honest, I wasn't in the press conference on Saturday. You were at Old Trafford. I wasn't there on Saturday. I had a weekend off. But I do find the whole experience in the press conference is really awkward. I don't think it's a particularly enjoyable experience, even just to sit alongside. It's not a professional way in which he deals with the questioning. I've been there myself. Look, I've been in that position before with managers when managers don't want to answer a question or they get particularly annoyed because you're getting under the skin, then they give you that kind of answer. But it just doesn't look good. I don't think Steve Bruce, to me, is somebody who cares all that much about how he looks in the PR. I think I mentioned it on the show last week. We had the picture of him outside of the huddle in the League Cup game. We have the really terse and dismissive answers on the first weekend, I think it was, of Graham Jones. I've said this before. I think this is probably just kind of the way that he is in these situations. Yeah. We had the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer the first time round last season of the laughing and carrying on after a stuffing. I just don't think positive PR is his thing. With regards Miles's question, fair play to Miles. Every time he keeps digging at the fans and the chants. It's a couple of times he's asked that now. And I'm not sure that Steve Bruce is particularly enjoying being asked that question. But fair play to Miles for continuously asking that question. And I've got to say hats off to Lee Ryder as well. Look, Lee takes a lot of stick from the Newcastle United fan base. And he's not everybody's cup of tea, and I understand that. But I think I would love to think that after recent questioning, recent months, that he gets a little bit of credit where it's due, because he's asking the questions that you guys want asked. He stood up and asked that question on the holidays thing. Look, I made my stance on the holidays thing clear last week, that I didn't think it was the biggest thing in the world, but I understand and respect that a lot of people out there did. And Lee took that upon himself to ask that question. He's got a thick skin. He's taken a lot of stick from the manager, takes a lot of stick from the fans. But look, he's not everybody's cup of tea, but he's asking the question that you guys want asked. And Miles is doing exactly the same thing. And ultimately, that's kind of the role of what a local journalist should do. My role now, I'm not a day-to-day local journalist. I'm kind of a sit back and sort of analyse things. It's a slightly different role that I've got now, but I've been in that position before, whereby you're relying on the lines, you're relying on post-press conference lines, and you've got to ask those really nitty-gritty questions. And I think, you know what, I think the North East press pack take a lot of stick, and I think a lot of it's unnecessary. I think there's a lot of people believe that people aren't asking the questions that you want answered. People are, and a lot of the time, people who want to ask questions that you guys want answers to will have the hand put down in press conferences, or will not be allowed to ask a question in a press conference. Now, this is a double-edged sword, really. because I can totally understand why people's hands would be put down. I can totally understand why questions from the written press are limited. Of course, I find that situation frustrating because for me, the bread and butter, the proper stuff that you'll always get will come from your written boys. Your written boys will ask the proper questions. That's no criticism of your TVs and radio, of course. They also ask good questions. But I always think that your real digging, your real hard news lines, you get into the crux of a subject, really digging down on something, comes from your news boys, your dailies, your nationals, comes from the written press and their huddle. And I think that's one thing that's sadly missing at the moment in Newcastle United media situation is the club are there is obviously this Premier League directive whereby everybody has to conduct their interviews by Zoom, and I don't imagine that's going to change in the near future. I pray that it does, because there's a big loss to everybody out there. You're not getting the same kind of answers that you would get if it was a face-to-face contact, because I think I've mentioned this before, and it might be of interest out there. Tell us to shut up if it's not of interest, but the way I see it is that your press pack, in a press conference where everybody's crowded around the manager, everyone may in their mind 2 or 3 questions. You think, oh, well, I'll ask that if that doesn't come up, or I want to know about this today. You'll go into the press conference with a mindset in that sort of direction. A lot of people have the same ideas. You'll want to know what your injuries are. You'll want to know why he's not scoring goals, or you'll want to know why did you make that change. You know, the nitty-gritty stuff, you'll get that. But there'll also be 2 or 3 other bits in your mind. You'll think, oh, well, maybe I'll ask him about his form or the fixtures coming up or whatever it may be. But if somebody touches a nerve in a press pack, in a press conference, not in a Zoom one, of course, then that often there's like a hyena mentality almost sometimes comes about if it's a really sort of nitty-gritty subject. And if you know you've got somebody on the ropes, then the next person will bin their ideas on what they were going to ask, and they'll dig down on that issue, and there'll be another question on what the manager said. It'll almost become really organic in that process, and you'll get much more detailed answers from these things. Of course, that doesn't happen now. So in the Zoom press conference, again, apologies if I'm boring people with the technicalities of this, but the Zoom press conference will be one question. Press conferences I've been in recently been limited to 3 written press questions for the whole pack, and I'm talking about 3 written questions for Chronicle, Shields Gazette, Athletic, Sun, Mirror, Express, Star, whoever, all of the newspapers, the Mail, anybody else you can think of out there. That's 3 written questions. That's one of the recent examples, and I think that's one of the things that sort of grates on me when I see people get their knives out for the media. Look, most people that I know who cover Newcastle United are a fair amount of them are Newcastle United fans, and they want to know, or they care a lot about the club if they're not fans, and they want to know the answers as much as you guys do out there. But often in this process, throughout the last 18 months, they've had one hand tied behind their back. And really, that's probably going to continue for the near future as well. Until the Premier League change that, then I don't think we're going to see anybody. So Newcastle United will not be offering to shorten that, because, like I said before, I can see the other side of it, the PR side of it as well. If I'm, for example, Lee Marshall or somebody like that behind the scenes at Newcastle United who has to look after the PR and the positive message, then I really don't want Steve Bruce going off on a tangent. I probably want to limit as many questions as I can. I don't want him having 20 questions from the written boys, because he's potentially going to put his foot in it more than once or twice in that 10-15 minutes, and I don't want that to happen. So yeah, I can see it from both sides, but it's one thing that's maybe I would hope after hearing that press conference, and it has gone viral. A lot of people have seen that. There's been a lot of transcripts done. I did one in particular as well this week, and I think it's important to get that out there. The kind of situation that there is, and that those questions that you guys are asking on here, that you guys are asking in different forums, they are getting asked. It doesn't mean you're getting the answers you want, and there isn't a follow-up to that. So you ask a question and that's your finish. It's not a case of you suddenly jump in and ask another one. You get your one shot and that's it. And that's a bit of a cop-out for the manager, but a positive in a Newcastle United sense, because I believe had there been open press packs over the course of the last 12 to 18 months, if you think Steve Bruce has put his foot in it quite a lot in that time, I would imagine there'll be a whole lot more. If it'd been open house and everybody had been able to jump in and dive in. So, look, I think my opinion on the whole thing is Steve Bruce. I don't really want it to sound like an absolute slate. I'm trying to slate Steve Bruce here. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to let you know out there that the press are mostly on your side, because I've seen a lot of knives out in the last month, I would say. A lot of criticism saying we've got a rubbish press pack. They're not asking the right questions. They're not getting stuck in on our side. That just isn't the case. It isn't the case at all. So I'll jump off my soapbox and I'll hand it back to the floor.
Yeah, no, listen, that's fair enough. Look, lots of takeover talk has been quashed on this show in recent months. We've been very positive, throughout the COVID lockdown, because we certainly believed that there was a good chance of it going through. We then got hit with legalities, and we knew there would be legal obstacles in the way. Arbitration, CAT, obviously arbitration is delayed. CAT, we'll find out at the end of this month what the situation is with that. Behind the scenes, we're being led to believe things are still going on. Whether that's true or not, only the people involved know. I certainly haven't been given anything positive. I've got to be perfectly honest this week. As everybody knows, I've got contacts on both sides of the deal. I think it's fairly quiet. However, the reports coming from those people who are getting good information from people at the airport today would suggest that there's been a lot of activity, a lot of secret activity, people coming in and out of the region, including our owner. And Darren Cowan is asking a question, do we think Yasser Al-Rumayyan being appointed to Ambani Reliance to the board is a good sign for the takeover? Sean Crozier, he's asking, what's Liam's take on Mukesh Ambani apparently heading to Tyneside? That is apparently who has been on Newcastle or in Newcastle over the last 24 hours, according to one of my contacts. And, essentially there is positivity coming out of Keith Patterson's account, NCSL, which, of course, he will be on the show on Friday. But what is your take, Liam? What are you hearing at Newcastle World about the takeover? Is something else bubbling away? Has there been a realliance of, a realignment, of the different parties, do you think? Or do you think this is all just another load of media waffle, which Newcastle fans would do best to ignore?
I would say that I think people need to just, I've said it before on here, and I hate to be that voice, a constant voice. It's just, people just need to be careful what they believe and who they believe. It is, I agree with you, Steve. It is very quiet. Of course, I've heard the same rumours with regards Mukesh Ambani. Whether that's linked in any way, who knows? I've heard the same rumours about Mike Ashley. But of course, in this process over the course of the last 18 months, these kind of rumours aren't something new. They're the type of things that pop up and crop up constantly throughout this process. Can they be legitimately trusted, those sources? Yeah, they've been right. They've been right on a number of occasions where certain stories have come from. But would I immediately jump down Asda and get myself 8 cans? Well, no, I wouldn't do that either. I think if you've learned one thing throughout this process, it's that I think we just need to stay level-headed and stay calm. It is very quiet. And I think, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I've heard the same things about stuff taken away in the background. I don't share the positivity that something will be done very immediately, or I'll leave that to other people to predict and put those kind of timelines on things, because that's not something I'm going to, having walked this road with you, Steve. I think we both know that putting timetables and timescales on these kind of things is just fraught with danger. And I think my takeaway from the last few days is it's okay to pick bits out, but I don't necessarily think Yasser Al-Rumayyan being appointed to a board of a company, it could be related, but I wouldn't immediately jump to conclusions and say it's a positive for Newcastle United takeover. Look, I think everybody just needs to chill out, calm down with this whole thing, and it'll happen if it happens, when it happens. You know what I mean? It's not something that I'm going to lose any sleep over. I think those days are long gone. I think the days I would hope that a lot of people out there are in the same mindset as me. Those days of constantly checking Twitter, constantly checking your phone for updates. That for myself will be from contacts from people that I know. Yourselves will be from, you might have Steve Wraith as a notification on Twitter. You might have Liam Kennedy. You might have somebody else. You might have NCSL. I think those days for me, I would advise, are probably long gone. For your own mental well-being, for your own health, just chill out about it. What I would say is that it is possible that things could move quite quickly in this process, because you've got to remember that although many people doubt that Mike Ashley is a willing seller of the football club, we're led to believe that he does. He's still desperate to sell this football club. We're led to believe that he has had negotiations, potentially with other people. We're led to believe that things are still absolutely alive with regards to the PCP consortium deal. People will choose to believe exactly what they want to believe. But what I'll say on the whole thing is, if I had an answer to say, Barney's buying the club, I would have written it by now. If I'd had a guaranteed answer that he was on Tyneside, I would have written it by now. If I'd had guarantees that PCP were imminent, something was imminent. I've even seen suggestions that it could be done next month, this month, November, Christmas, whatever. If I'd had that information from legitimate sources, I would have written it by now. So stay tuned, stay aware, and be very aware of people who lead you up the garden path. I've said it many times on this show, and I wrote a piece today which focused in on that, is that there's a lot of people out there who want to be that guy. They want to be the one who said, I told you so. Refer back to my tweet on the 21st of September. Look what I said about what was going to happen. Well, okay, mate, but you said about 15 other things were going to happen as well and didn't. So, you're throwing off shit. Some of it's going to stick, isn't it? And I think that's kind of the process that a lot of these in the know accounts have on Twitter. You guys aren't daft out there. You know the people with sources. You know who to trust. On the 1st of January this year, I put a little New Year's message out to everybody, and I said, be careful who you trust. And that's just something that I would continuously live by in this Newcastle United takeover process. Just be careful. If you see somebody who I'm not going to tell you who I deem to be trustworthy on Twitter. You'll all have your own little niches. You'll all have 4 or 5 writers, or it might be 2 or 3 accounts, or whatever it may be, that you think, if he says something, then it's going to be right. Stick to that. If you trust them, stick to that. And all I'm going to say is, I'm not writing anything at this stage on Barney. I'm not writing anything at this stage on other interested parties. And nor am I writing anything at this stage on the PCP deal being imminent.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't think we're going to be any straighter than that, to be perfectly honest. And we'll watch with interest as this develops. Tom Dixon says, Liam, do you think Darlow's fit enough to come back into goal for the Leeds game?
It's a really tough decision, I think, for Steve Bruce, because I think it's a lot more than one game. If he drops Freddie Woodman, it could be a massive confidence killer for the lad. I'll argue, I would, up until Saturday, I would argue that he hadn't done enough to make the jersey his own, but nor had he done enough to be taken out of.
Oh, Liam, gone into pause mode. So as he gets himself sorted, I will give a shout out to the sponsors. Big shout out to Spider VPN, the makers, Spider VPN, who for all your internet security, simply Google Spider VPN and they come up at the top of your Google search. Big shout out as well to Skips and Bins. Skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Also, a big thanks to L&G Family Funeral Directors who have been with us for the last 2 months as well. 0191 389 7245 is the number for L&G Family Funeral Directors. Also, thank you to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle. And they also the guys who run our website, which is NUFCmatters.com. And thanks to Jab Signature, whose new range of boxing gear is out now. Follow Jab on Twitter if you are interested in purchasing anything from them. And they do our flyers. Also, a big thank you to Newcastle Legends. And if you just Google Newcastle Legends, you will find them. Events that we've got coming up over the next couple of weeks. We have some fantastic events, including Gavin Peacock, Peter Beardsley, and of course the Christmas do with Malcolm MacDonald. NewcastleLegends.com. Jump onto that website to find out more and click shop. You can also roll your mouse or click over the Newcastle Legends logo and subscribe to the channel for free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumbs up to like the video, click share to share to your other social media, and drop into your comments section to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans. We also have podcasts available. All the shows go straight on iTunes, Spotify, and onto Podbean and other podcast providers. Don't forget, we also support Loaded Mag on this show. A lot of the guys come on, and a lot of us have been onto their shows as well. Loaded Mag. Just Google it or search it on YouTube and give the lads a subscription. They are hastily heading towards 1,000 subs. And if you can do that, it would be much appreciated. And as I mentioned earlier, the website, NUFCmatters.com, got plenty of things up on sale on there. And as I say, it is Q-Tech who monitor that. The London Calling t-shirts have been very popular, as have the Ryan Taylor Over the Wall t-shirts. So get yourself onto there and have a look. Cups, mugs, whatever you want, all on there. Have a good look. Okay, I think we've got Liam back now. There he is. Liam, internet dropout, but you were just talking about Carl Darlow and whether you think he could start on Friday night against Leeds.
Yes, I think he probably does start. I'll cut to the chase. I think he probably does. What I would say is I would again urge caution on this, because Carl Darlow is not the answer to Newcastle United's goalkeeping problems, but he does have that little bit more experience than Freddie Woodman. I think he proved last season he's decent, but he's still no Martin Dubravka. Martin Dubravka wins Newcastle United points. Of course, he has the odd mistake in him, as I'll always caveat that with, but he wins more points than he loses. I think Martin Dubravka is one of the biggest misses of Newcastle United's season last season, and I think he continues to be so this season. So the sooner he's back, the better, because you'll see points start to accumulate when Martin Dubravka's back between the sticks. I think it's a big knock for Freddie Woodman if he does get dropped out, because this was a fantastic opportunity. But he's a young lad, very highly rated by people who know him much better than I do. So fingers crossed it isn't too much of a knock for him.
Okay, Lee Taylor says 2 stories going around over the last few days. One about Bruce having 3 games left, starting with the Man United match. The other one, which was circulating from Luke Edwards, came out yesterday saying that he didn't think that Bruce was going anywhere anytime soon. Is the truth somewhere in the middle, or do you come down on one side?
I'm actually with Luke Edwards on this one. I think Steve Bruce, and I've constantly said this, even when there's been pressure last season at times, that Steve Bruce, they will sack him when they absolutely have to sack him. They won't do it before that. That's just the way that they operate. The only thing that would change that for me would be if the manager wanted to go and walked, which I don't see happening either. I think there would have to be a disastrous turn of events over the next 2 to 3 games for any considerations to be made. Because let's remember, they stuck by him 2 wins in 21, was it? 2 cup exits, a lot of embarrassments along the way. They stuck by him through that. There's no hiding it. I think they went 10 games. Was it just late December through to mid-January? I think they went 10 games without picking up anything. So I think, I just don't believe that he is hanging by a thread. And I think anybody that's going week to week to believe that he is hanging by a thread is probably, and again, this is something that Luke said, and we won't always agree. Nobody always agrees with people, but I do agree with him on this, that Newcastle United fans shouldn't stop calling for somebody who they believe is not good enough for their head. But it is a bit of a waste of energy in some ways, because I just don't believe the club are listening. I think the club go in the opposite direction, to be honest. And I think Steve Bruce will remain at Newcastle United while the wolf is still from the door. I think it would take something disastrous for that to turn around.
Okay, some people might say if we're losing another couple of games, it could be disaster. But again, we'll watch with interest. Stu Taylor is obviously fantasising about that moment coming where Bruce walks away. He just wonders what your thoughts are if Lee Clark became a short-term fix as manager, maybe Jonathan Woodgate as a number two.
Look, I totally respect Lee Clark, totally respect Jonathan Woodgate, but I think if those kind of people who have very limited experience, managerial experience at this level, come in, then it could be a recipe for disaster. I would hope that Newcastle United will be looking, and that's no offence to either person out there, because like I say, I respect them both. I just think Newcastle United would have to be looking at somebody who has the experience in the top flight, and I just don't think either of those two do. I think Jonathan Woodgate in particular was a bit of a car crash in his managerial career, so I don't think that would work at all.
Okay, Ben Smith wants to know why has Dylan Stevenson been called up to the first team set up at the club when we've got enough forwards in the likes of ASM, Almiron, Gale, Joe Linton and so on. Bruce named those players, not me. Something we talked about when the pre-season was well underway, and Bruce did come out and say that in an interview with you, Liam, and I noticed a couple of people quoted on social media, made sure that you got the credit last night. And we've got enough centre forwards, so why is it when Callum Wilson is now ruled out till October, we struggle to find one and can't score any goals?
We know that totally. They were desperate. They absolutely had to sign more forwards in the summer. They had to bring somebody in who could reliably stand in for Callum Wilson when needed, and they didn't. They didn't make any effort to do that, and it was something that I pushed the manager in July. It was at Rotherham. I asked him the question, does he believe that he has enough Premier League firepower? And he came out with that quote where he named the five, including Alan St. Maximin and Miguel Almiron. He also asked him again in August, the similar question, but with Callum Wilson. If Callum Wilson were to drop out, do you believe that you've got enough there without signing? And he was unequivocal in that answer. He was absolutely sure that he did have enough, almost going as far to say, well, how many more do you want? And I think he'll live or die by that now. He'll live or die. Newcastle United will live or die by that quote now. Is there enough there? There isn't enough goals in this squad. There isn't anywhere near enough, in my opinion. I think a lot of people out there share that opinion. And I think that's the reason why somebody like Dylan Stevenson has been brought up, and I think it's a good learning curve for the lad. We've seen lads at Newcastle United score plenty of goals at that level before. Sorensen being one probably in the last 3 or 4 years. There's been ones before that too. But it can only be a good experience for him to be in and around the first team. And look, the lad is scoring a lot of goals. He scored a lot of goals at the back end of last season, scored a lot of goals this season, and up for the Premier League 2 Division 2 Player of the Month he was for the last month. And look, good luck to the lad. We've seen Joe White on the bench at the weekend. Fantastic footballer. We've seen Elliot Anderson make his comeback for the under-23s this week. Another player who will be knocking on the door. And I know it's not the type of thing that people want to talk about, particularly in this current climate, but they are two really talented lads. They're not like new signings, of course, but they are talented lads who are knocking on the door. And it wouldn't surprise me if we're seeing, maybe not Dylan Stevenson, but it wouldn't surprise me if this season we did see bits and bobs of Elliot Anderson and Joe White when things are needed, because they're both really talented, creative, attacking midfielders. That's what they are. That's the problem that I've got at the moment. And I wrote a piece on it earlier this month, is that Newcastle United, arguably, it's the square pegs and the round holes thing. Newcastle United play a system now, which is implemented throughout the 23s, etc. as well. But they play a system now which Steve Bruce, Graham Jones have thought up, which doesn't have a number 10. And you could actually argue, in and around the first team squad, they've got 4 who would, if you ask the question of them, would play as a number 10. Newcastle United don't play with one at all. That's quite a big percentage of players who don't have a position to play in the team. And I would argue that you ask Alan St. Maximin, where do you want to play and what do you see yourself as? He'll tell you a 10. Miguel Almiron will say exactly the same thing. And Joe White and Elliot Anderson are both players who want to play off the front. So that's, to me, that's not good squad management and not good planning. But it's nothing new at Newcastle United.
Yeah, okay, we've got half an hour left. Let's try and get through as many of these questions as we can. Carl James says, Liam, have you heard anything about Steve Cooper, the fella who plays the Barca way, linked to the Newcastle job? Or is it just nonsense? Yeah, but I felt it was a bit of clickbait. I've got to be perfectly honest, from the Evening Chronicle, with their coach who was sitting in the stands who likes to play the Barca way. Clicked on it, read all the way down, and it was Steve Cooper from Swansea. I had to Google Steve Cooper. I hadn't got a clue who he was. I knew Tommy Cooper, but not Steve Cooper.
Like I said before, that I think he's safe. I think he's safe for the time being. So any talk of new managers coming in is just a waste of airtime, a waste of column inches for the time being. To be honest, Steve Cooper, I don't believe, has got the best of records. I don't think he's a particularly good manager. But I suppose, does that really put him into the category of managers that Newcastle United's owner looks at? Because that tends to be the type of manager, take Rafa Benitez out of the equation, that Newcastle United go for. They go for your cheap, lower league, doing the rounds, damaged goods. Alan Pardew, these type of managers, Joe Kinnear. We've had them all before. And like I say, take Rafa Benitez out of the equation, and it's been a real awful roll call of managers that we've had during those 14 and a half years.
Yeah, it's just never ending. Unfortunately, some of the rubbish that comes out in newspapers. But I thought that was far fetched. Obviously, Sam Allardyce sitting in the stands as well. I saw other news outlets coming out with that. But this is what happens. And some people believe Bruce is going. Other people think he's here for the duration. And a bit like the takeover, some people think it's going to go ahead ASAP. Some people think we're still a million miles away from it. It's never ending, really. Jesper says, I've seen that Leeds have been able to buy tickets for the match in the home end. Do you have any concerns about this? Because the club seem as though they are willing for a repeat of the Liverpool match. Just, I've got major concerns about this, and I've already highlighted it on the show. I think tickets going on general sale for a game as dangerous as this, it's got to be high category, certainly with the police, if not the football club. I think it's ludicrous. And if it's just to fill gaps because it's a Sky game, then that really is the height of stupidity on the club's behalf. And if Newcastle go a goal down, there's going to be toxicity in that ground anyway. People aren't happy. I've seen people linked to, peaceful protest in the ground, i.e. bringing whistles in, throwing paper aeroplanes. People are going not really to support the team on Friday. There's quite a few people, I would imagine, are not going to support the team. They're going to protest. And that really add away fans and Leeds fans into the home end as part of that. I think it's dangerous. I just hope they've got the correct amount of police on standby for this. All leave should be cancelled, I think, because Newcastle on a Friday night is lively to say the least. Newcastle on a Friday night with Leeds United fans in. Oh, dear me, it's a recipe for disaster, Liam. Well, Liam, gone on pause again, and I can't give the sponsors oh, there you're back again. I was going to say I can't give the sponsors a shout out. You went on pause there. Your internet's a nightmare tonight, mate.
It is.
Yeah, it's a recipe for disaster, this, mate. Selling home tickets to Leeds fans, mate.
Yeah, of course. We've seen it with Liverpool a couple of years back. I think there could be similar problems. I'll be honest, I'm not particularly looking forward to Friday. I don't know many people will be. But I think there's a potential for it to be a real dangerous atmosphere. Not necessarily always in the ground, but I just think in and around. I think there could be problems. I hope the club are taking the right advice. I hope the police are going to police it. Have plenty of police officers in the ground, because like you mentioned before, Steve, we've seen the sales of tickets to Leeds United fans in the home ends. So yeah, it's not going to be a great atmosphere.
No, it's not.
Like you said, it just doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel like a great game going into it. But look, they can change that on the pitch by actually getting a result, by going out there and shutting up those Leeds United fans. But it just hasn't got a great feel about it.
No, completely change of tact here from Paul Shanks. He says, "What is your favourite curry?" Well, mine's a chicken madras. Liam.
So I always order whenever I'm getting my takeaway, and I always get a chicken tikka boona, but I always get a madras hot. I like that little bit more body in me curry.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. That's a good answer. What is Ron saying? Exactly, Liam. Imagine Gibbo 30 years ago. Bruce would need a therapist after a grilling from John. Just getting back to where those early points that were made about journalists. Steve Richardson says Everton fans are in the top four for the first time this season. What screamer from Townsend last night? Got to be a contender. Come on, you Blues. Stephen. As much as I'd like to congratulate you, I'm just concentrating on Newcastle United, mate. But I'm absolutely devastated. We knew what Rafa was capable of. Everybody did, and to see him now doing what he would have done at Newcastle at another club is very galling and hard to take for me. I really, really am gutted about this. But look, good luck to you. Just not when you're playing us. Darren says, Steve, Gary Neville said last night he's going to a Newcastle pub on Friday to talk to Newcastle fans. That should be good, as long as he buys the round, the money he's got. Colin Wilson, good evening. He says, Bruce has got off very lightly. No crowds for a season. Now Zoom press conferences. He is one lucky man. Now the crowds are back. He doesn't like it. And the dummy has come out, which is a good point. And Rafa Benitez fan, good evening. He says, Amanda Staveley's husband is still liking Newcastle tweets. So hopefully they are still waiting. There's no doubt that they're still there. And I've never said they aren't, but I've just said that, time is ticking, on behalf of them and PIF. But let's just wait and see, guys. I'm not going to get back into this whole, preaching about the takeover on this show. If you want that, I'm sure there'll be other shows that will do that. But let them crack on and let's just see what happens. I think we don't need any more mental torment over that. We've all got enough to be concentrating on with the football without getting drawn back into takeover talk. If it happens and it happens overnight, happy days. Jacob says, evening both. Liam, when you get the next chance, please can you ask Steve Bruce why he doesn't wear the Newcastle badge at games or at the press conferences? I've only ever seen him wearing the Castoria jackets and a polo. Yeah, it's interesting that. He's never worn it. I don't think he'd be too happy if you ask him that question, like.
No, I don't think he would be happy. And what I would say is, I can probably understand him not, because the amount of stick he took for that photo you stuck up, Steve. You don't remember that one?
Oh, the one where he was, the one at York?
Yeah.
Yeah, where he was on the outside.
Yeah. No, it doesn't seem to, I don't think the kit fitted him. It wasn't the best look on him, I'll be absolutely honest. It might be just a case of that. Look, let's be absolutely honest. It might just be a case of that. There might be other stuff in the Castoria range that he thinks better. I really I'm not going to look. I respect you coming forward with that, but I wouldn't waste a question on asking him that when it's probably just a fashion choice. I don't really believe that he's somebody who's shunning the football club. It could be, but I doubt it.
Okay, when will Santiago Munez be playing his first game for the under-23, says Aaron?
I'll ask the question. I don't know that, Aaron. It's a really good question, but because I know there'll be people maybe wanting to get to a game if he is going to be playing somewhere. So I'll ask the question, but I would imagine it'll probably be within the next few weeks when he's done all of his settling in and quarantining, etc., that he had to do. So I would imagine it'll probably be in the next few weeks, but we'll have to wait and see.
Wayne Bennett on Facebook asks, he says, you can't watch live. He said, would you start Darlow on Friday? We've already discussed that. But he says, is it true that we turned down the chance to sign Rondon?
First question, I probably would start Carl Darlow on Friday. And I know that's really harsh on Freddie Woodman. But if Carl Darlow's fit, he is the number 2. And I just don't believe that Freddie Woodman's really stood up and claimed that jersey. I think he's had a fantastic opportunity to do so, and I just don't really believe that he has. So I'd probably start Carl Darlow. Solomon Rondon, let's not kid on here. Everyone goes on as if Newcastle United should have signed Solomon Rondon. Solomon Rondon was going to go wherever Rafa Benitez went, and Rafa Benitez went to Everton. And the minute that he signed a contract at that football club, Solomon Rondon was going to follow him. So let's not kid on pretending could Newcastle United have signed him when Everton did? He was always going to follow Rafa. So let's just forget the argument. It's an absolute pointless one to even go down that avenue, because he was always going to follow Rafa Benitez, as he did to China. he was always going to come back and sign for Everton as soon as Rafa turned up at Goodison Park. So he was never coming to Newcastle, full stop.
If the Chronicle's negative against the club, what papers are positive about Newcastle at this time, says Alan? It's a good point. Paul says, how can 10,000 people get in the Newcastle arena, yet you can't have 5 or 10 reporters in the press room? Do you think you'll ever go back to proper press conferences?
Look, I think it's a really interesting debate and one that I've had among colleagues in the industry. It is the perfect opportunity for football clubs to readdress the balance, particularly football clubs who aren't keen to go back to the status quo in the way that it was before. It's a bit like being able to press the reset button and hide behind certain protocols. Do I believe Newcastle United might do that? Only time will tell. I have got my doubts. I've got my doubts whether we'll end up back in the place that we were with the privileges that we had. We've already seen a severe limitation on, for example, and people keep mentioning the Chronicle tonight, a severe limitation on the amount of people the Chronicle can take to Newcastle United, including some people on tickets that are legends of the game, legends of the industry. So yeah, I'll reserve judgment on that question, but I do have high hopes. I really hope that we can get back to the way things were before, but I've got doubts whether that'll ever happen.
Okay, when is Dubravka due back into training, as he's a huge miss, says Tim? And I guess I should ask you as well, any news on Callum Wilson, Liam?
So the Darlow one, the only reference we've really had from Steve... Dubravka. The only reference we really had on Dubravka was around 3 weeks ago, where he said 8 weeks. So we're probably looking at mid-October. There hasn't been a fresh update on that one. That might be a question worth asking this weekend at some point. With regards to Callum Wilson, it again doesn't look great for the weekend. We're probably looking at another game or two. It was a problem that was, by the sounds of it, from people who know a lot more than me, that was pre-existing before the Southampton game, and it was something that went even further in the Southampton game early on, and was an issue. And I think that's one of the real bugbears that people have with Newcastle United at the moment, is they knew that the main man, the only man who scores goals in the Premier League squad, was carrying an injury going into the last few days of the transfer window. And despite the frustrations of what Steve Bruce might say, he wasn't looking to sign a striker. He was after a midfielder and a defender. So are we placing our Premier League hopes in the right kind of people here who can make logical decisions? Because if you'd asked 50,000 people who might be there on Friday, well, if you ask Newcastle United fans, I don't know if it'll be 50,000. You have to ask Newcastle United fans, did they need to sign a striker this summer? They will all, almost to a man and a woman, say yes, you did need to sign a striker. But the people at the top of the club, and Steve Bruce as well, didn't think that Newcastle United needed a striker. Is our future, our Premier League hopes this season, are they in the hands of the right people? I think you seriously have to question that.
Yeah, okay. 0 goals and assists from Miggy until an easy draw in the FA Cup, says Paul Gibson. I thought Miggy was the best player on the pitch. Yeah, I thought he was the best player on the pitch at the weekend. I know what you're saying about the goals, though, Paul. You are right. Look, we're desperate for goals up front. Manquillo bust a gut. 90 yards he covered as shown on Match of the Day to get that goal. Joe Linton, biggest waste of space ever on at the weekend. Very, very, sad to say, but that guy shouldn't really play for Newcastle again. But this is where we're at, unfortunately. Yano says we need to get rid of the squad players that are simply not good enough. We've replaced Xavier and Aarons, etc., with Longstaff and Hendricks. Alan says, Liam, these young lads will be needed when we're in the Championship next year, as Wilson and ASM will be gone.
I think that's a really negative way to look at things. Look, we're not relegated yet. It's 4 games into the season. It doesn't look great. It looks like we're going to be in trouble, but there's a few teams in and around who will struggle as well. Even a few that have already picked up wins this season will struggle. So, look, I'm not going to write Newcastle United off this season, but I've got to be honest as well that the early signs don't look good. If you're having to score 4 goals on average per game in the Premier League to win games, you ain't going to win many, and you're not going to pick up many points either. So I think things have to change defensively. They have to get up to scratch. It's not good enough. They're too easy to score against. It's no good playing like they did for 60 to 70 minutes and looking resolute in defence and limiting the opposition's chances if you then just collapse like a pack of cards in the last half an hour. And one of my biggest frustrations, although it was an improved performance throughout the weekend, is that they did this last season against Manchester United. And we've seen clubs like Sheffield United go and get results at Old Trafford. We've seen clubs in and around. Fulham got one there, I think, last season. Manchester United aren't actually the best team at breaking teams, the opposition down. They've proven that over the last couple of years. And we just gift wrap it for them with half an hour to go. It's ludicrous, and that's the most frustrating thing for me, because I believe that there'll be other clubs will go to Old Trafford and get something. And Newcastle United couldn't do that. Well, I'll go back quickly to mention somebody mentioned there and said we've replaced Sivey and Aarons, etc., with Hendrick and Longstaff. I would again disagree on Sean Longstaff. I believe Sean Longstaff, there is a Premier League player in there. I'm not sure we always see it, but there is a Premier League player in there. Jeff Hendrick, I'm not so sure, but Sean Longstaff, I think that's a harsh assessment on the player.
Yeah, lots of people asking about formations. Liam, starting Friday night with Leeds, do you think Bruce will change his formation? Instead of playing 5 at the back, maybe he's go to 4-4-2?
Good question, Tom, and it's something that I've constantly toyed with myself. Would I change it? Yes. Will Steve Bruce change it? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think he will as well. I think he'll just stick with what he's got. Do you think Manquillo will start, says Jacob? I'd love to think he would. He had a good game before he was substituted.
If fit, then yes, I believe he does start again, because it would be lunacy not to. But if he's unfit, which there are suggestions he may well struggle to make that game, then that would be a disappointment, because I've been calling for weeks for Manquillo to come in, because he's a proper right back who can do a bit of defending as well as the going forward stuff. Yes, he doesn't quite have exactly the same quality in the final third as what Jacob Murphy has, but Jacob Murphy's been at 6s and 7s, hasn't looked anywhere near good enough at Premier League level defensively, and has been clearly targeted by almost every single team that Newcastle United played as a clear weak link down that right-hand side. So for me, if Newcastle United have got a better chance of winning a football match on Friday if Javier Manquillo starts at right back.
Keith Roll reckons that Santiago Munez will start for Newcastle when Goal 4 comes out at the cinema. See what you did there.
I don't think there'll be any films. Yeah, I don't think there'll be any films made about this Newcastle United side. Do you, Steve?
No, definitely not. Carl James says he's waiting for Santiago Munez's free kick against Liverpool. Stu reckons that Newcastle should be sponsored by Prozac. Lots of talk about Steve Bruce getting measured for a suit. It certainly won't be for Wembley. Jeff says NUFC should be on prescription only. Tim Kern says, I just hope the documentary about our area screened amongst the Great North Run. Hopefully the potential owners bought into it. What potential owners, Tim, though? That's the question. Lots of talk about curries as well. And Thomas Wilson wants to know what your favourite topping is on a jacket potato, Liam.
I'm quite a simple man in that sense. I like beans or I like cheese. I'm not going to go. I might have tuna from time to time, but no, I'm not a flashy jacket potato eater.
What about cheese and beans?
Cheese and beans would be a winner. Yeah, I quite like that.
There we go. Well, that's sorted that out. Ryan wants to know if there's any truth in the rumour
out there.
There will be, I'm sure. Rumours of the training ground bust up between Charlie and Bruce. I guess this all comes from the story that we all heard last week about, Brucey going off on his travels without notifying the club, and then allegedly not being very happy about, the statement that the club had put out, where, it made him look a bit of a fool. We've discussed it on here anyway, but has there been any bust up? I wouldn't imagine so.
No, I don't think there's been a Richie Bruce type encounter with sort of Lee Charnley and Steve Bruce on the training pitch or anything like that. I think there's a lot of people are guilty of joining too many dots. I think there's a lot of people out there who add arms and legs to certain stories. It's been a particular bugbear of mine over the last 7 days. I'm not going to name any names, but I've seen certain bits and bobs that have gone out on social media in the last 7 days from accounts that some of it's just blatantly made
garbage.
Some of it's just, yes, absolute garbage. No better word for it. And there's been certain altercations on Twitter and things like that, where people are just so negative and are determined to cause even more problems, and they don't think there's going to be a comeback. They just make stuff up. It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
That's why I always say, be careful who you believe.
If Liam meets tuna, we're on the pitch, says Graham Coleman. Maybe he's having some mustard with that, Graham. Hey. Favourite chocolate bar, Liam?
I always turn to a Snickers. I know that's quite boring, but I always turn to a Snickers. You, Steve?
Yorkie with raisins. That's my favourite, I've got to be honest. Favourite flavour, crisps, says Rachel.
That's a tough one.
Now, this is flavour, not make.
Quite a boring
flavour.
Flavour. So it's really tough. I would normally, if I'm just going like for a normal crisp, I'd probably always go for like a cheese and onion, or maybe if I'm feeling a bit spicy, a sweet chili or a chili flavour or something like that. But I've got to say, like in terms of crisps for me, it's a bit of a throwback, bit retro, back to me being a kid. But I'm flying in for Monster Munch every time I'm at a service station or something like that. I'm always going for the Monster Munch.
Walkers for me, pickled onion. For Monster Munch, the spicy ones, the extra hot.
Yeah.
I like the extra hot Doritos as well. I like those ones. I'm partial to a mini cheddar. I think that just comes from countless Sunday mornings going in after football and going in for the cheese and the pickled onions and the cheesy biscuits, until people started talking about the germs that were in there when people don't wash their hands after having a piss. That's it's taken a completely different change now. The chat. Thanks for this, Rachel. Garlic or chili on your kebab is the next question.
Both.
That's from Steve Bruce.
Probably both. Line them up. I'll have one on Friday, Steve.
All right, okay. Jacob Hall says Pepsi or Coca-Cola.
Coke every day of the week.
All right, I like Coke as well, but it's got to be Diet Coca-Cola for me. Paul Gibson likes a Boost with his coffee. Boosts are quite nice, yeah, the blue ones. Very nice. I like Toblerone. I've got to be honest, I quite like Toblerone as well. Jeff wants to know what your favourite garbage track is.
I'm not a fan of garbage.
I think that. Do you think the garbage league did? Tim reckons we need to give the football team a foul to get them running. Bloody hell, I've had 4 of them in my lifetime, and I tell you what, like, it's great going in, but on the way out, lads and lasses, it's absolutely lethal. Do not have a foul. It's not recommended.
So what's going to happen? Are they going to do you think Steve Bruce should bring back curry hell for the dressing room before it?
I think Steve Bruce should be given the curry hell treatment. Keith Rose says, Steve, what were you eating off camera for your tea on Friday night's Fab 4? I had battered cod, salad and wedges. That's what I had for my tea before I went out. Wieldy like skips. Skipsandbins.com? No, Skips Crisps. I see where you're going with that. Is this not the hairy biker? Says Gary Milliken. Brian H has just put Bovril. Keith wants to know, Oasis or the Stone Roses, Liam?
Oasis.
Okay, yeah, I've got to say Oasis. For me, probably just pips the Stone Roses, but it's a close call. It is a close call. I know Holly is a big Stone Roses fan. For someone so young, she's got good musical taste. So she's really into the Stone Roses. Oasis for me, though, definitely. Mark Byers agrees with me. He says a fall is no good for the Gary Glitter. Utterly butterly, or I can't believe it's not butter, says Tom Lynch.
Both shite. Lurpak, sorry.
Yeah, slightly salted, reduced fat.
No, it's just the normal one. None of this reduced. No, you've got to go. If you're going Lurpak, you've got to go.
Well, you see, we don't have Lurpak anymore because we go to Aldi, so it's no pack.
I don't mind the snide ones as well. I'll take them, but they can maybe do, you know. But if you're buying a crusty bread, something nice like that, you've got to go for the full. Got to go for the full lot. Get the Lurpak in.
Brown ale or snake bites, says Gary Milligan. And he wants to know what your favourite TV show is.
I could be partial to both, but I'll be honest. If I'm going to the pub now for one, I'll probably have a snake bite.
Yeah, I just drink vodka and wine, so neither of those for me. If I had to be pushed between vodka or wine, if I could only drink one ever again, it would have to be red wine. Jacob Paul says curry or EastEnders. Definitely Coronation Street for me.
Neither for me. I don't really watch them.
Yeah,
I think
I've watched it for years.
I'll probably say EastEnders from years ago. That would be the one I would have turned to rather than ITV's curry. I would have went more for EastEnders.
Thomas Wilson showing his favourite music here. S Club 7 or Steps?
Honestly, I can't believe what's happening here. Like, this has gone from a show about football to just like some random food and culture Q&A. So S Club 7 or Steps.
You were buying time there to get your answer out.
This is a tough one though, isn't it? I've had to give this one a good think. Never mind Oasis and the Stone Roses. S Club 7 or Steps. Let's go Steps. Let's go Steps for this one.
All right, okay. Frank Pingle or Joe Linton? It's Frank Pingle for me.
I never seen Frank Pingle play, so I'm gonna have to choose Joe Linton. But I'm guessing it's a rock and a hard place type of question.
Steve Bruce says Alan Pardew or me? Alan Pardew every day.
Pards, yes. Sorry, Steve.
Definitely. Tom Lynch says shoot or match? Shoot for me.
Shoot every day of the week.
Yeah, the Chuckle Brothers or Laurel and Hardy? Laurel and Hardy for me.
Yeah, again, I can't argue with you, Steve. Chuckle Brothers are more contemporary, of course, but no, Laurel and Hardy, the classics are the best.
Yeah, Ronaldo or Messi? I'm sure we've had this one on the programme before. For me, I went with Ronaldo.
Messi.
Yeah, I think that was the same answers as well. Bruce or Kinnear? Kinnear. Got a better record. You've got to pick one.
Bruce?
Oh, wow. Oh, Christ. Definitely not. Kinnear's better entertainment in the press. Frank Spencer before Joe Linton says Colin. Ant or Deck, says Roger. For me, it's got to be Ant. I've got a good relationship with him and had a couple of nights out with him. Liam?
Let's level it up. I'll say Deck then.
Good. Fumaker or Marcelino?
Marcelino, probably because he was a better player, even though they're both terrible.
Yeah, Marcelino as well. I remember him. Hustlers or Escort? Escort was the one that used to be down the back of Liam's bed by the looks of it.
It just depends what you'd find in the bushes, isn't it? Really, like what somebody's
exactly.
thrown away.
That's the right answer. That's where every proper lad found his magazines of choice, in the bushes where somebody ditched them. Just never touch the pages that stick together. Sorry, folks. Sorry. Graham says Tony Cunningham or George Riley. Rambo for me. Tony Cunningham or George Riley, Liam?
I can't. That's before my time. I can't answer that one, unfortunately. Well before.
All right, got to go with Rambo because of his nickname. Ska or rock music? Ska for me.
Yeah, Ska as well. Yeah.
Sky or Virgin? Virgin.
Virgin's terrible, isn't it? This is who I'm with. Even though I've changed, it's quite. Look, I'm being unfair to them. The internet problems aren't really Virgin. I think it's the area that I'm actually in that causes the issues. But yeah, I'll probably say in terms of TV, definitely Sky.
It's Virgin on the ridiculous. Steve, I for one appreciate your Think Before You Tweet campaign. Sadly, the trolls have claimed another victim of a beautiful 42-year-old lady follower of mine on Twitter who has taken her own life. Rest in peace, Andrea. Keith, sorry to hear about that. That is awful. And to hear anything about that is awful. So please pass on our condolences as well. Penman, I'm not answering that at all. Don't even get started on trying to compare people on there. We're all equal on this show. Charlie or Lambias? But you know what? I'm going to go Lambias, and the only reason being that he communicated more than Lee Charnley for me.
Yeah, I think it's hands down Lambias. Absolutely no. I don't think it's a competition because who is Lee Charnley? We've literally not heard or seen from him since he took the job. So it's been an embarrassment, really, that he's been basically running the football club.
It is. Okay, we've come down to the last minute. Look, it's sometimes nice just to break the monotony of misery by having a bit of a laugh. And just want to thank everybody in the chat for playing along with that. That was great. Thank you for taking us in that direction. It's your show. More than happy for you to do that. Follow at Newcastle World, which is Liam. Just give it a quick plug, Liam, before we close.
Yeah, so if you like the sort of stuff that I do on here, just give this a follow. It's down here at Newcastle_World, and you'll see all the kind of stuff that you might have seen from me at the Gazette, your long reads, your analysis, all that kind of thing, and also, of course, exclusive stories as and when. So yeah, just give it a follow. Any support out there, I've got to say a big thank you to every single person who has taken upon themselves to follow in the last couple of weeks. Just keep up your support. It is much appreciated from my end. And I also want to say a special thank you to, I didn't catch their names, but I was at Goals on Sunday and I bumped into a couple of lads who were absolutely desperate for answers, off the record talks they wanted. I bumped into another lad today. There's lots of people out there who watch this show. And if you see us out and about, feel happy to come and say hello. I'll always chat any year, but it's really good to get that kind of positive feedback. And when you bump into people, or they'll shout your name across the room or wherever it may be. So yeah, special thank you to everybody out there who supports this show and has been supporting my Newcastle World cause as well.
Yeah, look, we'll open up these questions for me and Liam again next week. It was a good laugh, that, so let's not forget it and let's have a go. It's a friggin' madhouse tonight, says Graham Coleman, but everybody has enjoyed it. And please do hit the likes on the way out, people, as John said. Liam, as always, great to see you, pal. Have a good week. See you next Tuesday. Take care.
Cheers.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to